Hello and welcome to another episode of the Modern Maker Workroom. In this episode, we have one significant step that we're going to put onto this woman's doublet, and that is to stay tape the neckline and finish it. And when I say stay the neckline, this is a step that frequently gets left out of historical dress. It is a little tiny twill tape. Sometimes in historical garments, a cord was used. But the whole purpose is to put this into the neckline, which is primarily cut on the bias, and prevent the neckline from stretching out with wear and use. It keeps the neckline snug, it keeps it from gaping, so if you have an issue when you're making your historical clothing where you have a larger neckline, one that's not closed in, you have a larger neckline, and it tends to gape open, this could be one of your potential solutions. This helps keep it secure and helps give the garment a nice long life while never losing its crisp and perfect shape. Now, this can be applied to more than just this style of garment. Any garment where you have a significant portion that's cut on the bias in the neckline, this technique will be very useful for making it last longer and look better. So you'll need some twill tape, a set of snips, and you'll need some good strong thread, and of course you'll need the garment that you're working on. I hope you have your needles ready, and I hope you're looking forward to some great sewing.
The first thing I'll do is to begin preparing my tape. So I just want to make sure that I have the right length. So I will grab a length of tape and I will measure from center front. I'm leaving a little bit of an allowance. Measure from center front all the way to center back, and then I'll simply fold it in half and cut it off. That way I know it's just double what I'm measuring here. And then I'll use my chalk to mark center back, and that will take me right up to the point where I can begin stitching it in place. My next step is going to be lining this up with center back. So I made my little mark and I'm going to put it here. Now I'm setting this down so that the top edge of the tape is where the fold line of my neck will be. And that's because I really want this edge to support the crease. I don't want it to be in the seam allowance side of it. I need it to be in the body side. If I were to put it right next to the cut edge at the seam allowance side, then there is a tendency for that edge to be smaller than where I actually want the fabric to finish. So I don't want it to pull the neckline in that way. I need to have more control over it. So instead I am placing it with the top edge of the tape right where I want the crease to be, and as I work you will see me pull some tension into this tape, particularly once I get around to the front. You'll notice that I use my needle to kind of pull the tape tight, and then I grasp it with my left thumb and forefinger, and I make a couple of stitches, and then I repeat the process over and over again. And this uses that tape as almost like a little bridle to hold all of the threads in place and keep them from stretching out. And I'll do this all the way until I reach the end, and once I reach the end then I will finish it off with a few stitches and make sure that it's secure, and then I'll repeat that and do the other side. Now that the initial work is done to secure the tape in place, I'm going to turn, and now I'm working my way along the bottom of this tape. I'm taking very small, very careful stitches along the bottom of the tape, and these are just whip stitches, but they're not going to go through to the outside of the garment. I'm just going to secure this tape with them very, very well. And this just adds support to the top of the garment, preventing it from stretching out of shape as the garment is worn.
At this point, I'm going to jump ahead. I like to start at center back because it makes me feel more comfortable with the way the work goes. I know that I can feel the fullness that I'm pulling into the tape a little bit better if I work from center back to the edges.
You'll notice that I'm pressing on the tabletop, but I'm lifting the doublet onto something else so that it's falling down onto the table. And what this does is it helps keep all of that three-dimensional sculpting that we've worked so hard to create in place and stops it from flattening out because we may or may not be as careful as we could be with the iron. So now that I've given it a nice quick press on the outside, I will move to the inside and I'm going to press the seam allowance back. Now you'll find that once you've stitched your twill tape in place, you have a very hard edge that you can feel through the fabric, so you know exactly where to press it. And as I'm working, I am also stretching the seam allowance a little bit on the bias just to help it to lie flat on the inside. Now that I have the pressing in place and I have everything where I want it, it's time to just stitch the neckline. So in order to do this, I'm going to use a very small, very intentional cross stitch. This could also be done with a catch stitch. This is frequently seen in historical garments done with a whip stitch. Anything that you can use that is convenient for you and comfortable for you that will secure this neckline in place and make sure that the hem is actually stitched and not simply pressed. It's important that it be permanently stitched so that the garment has some longevity. For our next step, we're just hemming the lining down onto the neckline. We are folding the linen back and just finger pressing it in place. I have a little needle with some basting thread in it. I'm using gray in this shot just so you can see it. But the lining just gets put in place and then the basting stitches go in. We will use fell stitches to secure the front of the neckline. Now the back is actually going to go in a little bit differently. We're not going to secure the back until the sleeves are in place. And the reason for that is because we haven't closed the shoulders of the lining yet. So we're going to do the front first, then the sleeves will go in, and then the lining for the back will get closed across the neckline, across the shoulders, and around the armholes so that the whole garment closes up and is complete kind of in one go. Oftentimes with tailored garments, a lot of tailors will wait till the very end to remove all of the bastings, but in this instance, because I'm making it for a mannequin and I want to be able to show all the different steps, I'm making sure to remove the bastings as I go. Finally, now that this garment is complete, we'll take a nice slow look at the way the shaping works. Here's the completed front lining on the inside, and now let's have a look at the shape. If we open the doublet here, you can see the curved hollows that have been left for the bust, and the nice clean shape that we're going to get when this doublet is complete. Thank you so much, and happy stitching.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Modern Maker Workroom, and if you'll join us next time, we're going to be exploring how to make the sleeves. We're going to stitch them, and we have a special technique where we will be lining them and stitching them at the same time, which is going to be really fun and very interesting, I think. So if you will join me next time, I think we're almost done with this garment.